Hi Daria, I am making a final video to show um, my process from start to finish, how I would color correct a photo and move it through the folders or the later folders anyway, using Lightroom, using Photoshop. I know you've got experience in Lightroom and Photoshop, and you know, just consider this a tutorial video. Take out of it what you will. I think I've done enough images that there's probably a couple of things I may be able to you might find valuable. So um, yeah, I'll get started and show you how I work essentially. So in the resources folder, I've got a new location folder. So I'm just going to drag that onto the desktop, and I'm going to put this photo that I've got here. I chose this photo because, well, A, it was on my desktop already. B, it is a little bit blown out in these areas here, and it's also got some dark shadows. This guy here, I wouldn't want him in the photo, and yeah, I think it's got a number of issues that I deal with all the time with these images. Some things you'll know, obviously, but anyway, I'll just show you how I treat this image. So let's assume that this file is in the pre-processed folder. If I can grab it. So we will put that in there. Okay. Now I'll start up Lightroom and I'll add the folder. So on the desktop, let's pause the video. Okay, so I've got the new location folder. Obviously that would be named something else. And I've got the pre-processed folder here. And I'm going to be working on this image. So into develop. Now, obviously you would know these sliders. I'll just go through them and talk about a few things that I've discovered over the time and what I do, what I don't do. Now, I usually don't touch exposure in Lightroom unless there's a problem kind of like that. I still probably wouldn't touch it because it's just going to bring the darks down. I generally find I don't need to touch exposure. I don't touch contrast. I do a lot of work in Photoshop. Highlights I always pull all the way down. Shadows I always pull all the way up. And sometimes I usually have it at about 90, somewhere there, and then I just see if I should be going to 100%. Just doing those two things, already said, you can see the vast difference that has made already. And that's the same for that. I use a preset with that already done. I save it out because I'd always have it at least starting at that. I'll come back to whites, blacks, and everything. Vibrance, saturated. I'll come back to all that. I'll come back to this. Detail, noise reduction. So noise reduction, I'll go to 1 to 1, and I can see the noise that's in this guy here. So if I put the noise reduction at about 50%, I can see that it's knocked it right out, but it has made him a little bit blurry. So I'll pull it back a little bit. So now I'm at about 25, about there. And you can see that the most of that noise is gone. Detail, if I pull the detail back up, so that we're introducing more detail, about 90. There, so that there is my preset. I would save that out as a preset, and then I would, over here, wherever it is in presets, and then I would press that, and that's where I would start. So now, so once I've got my basic preset, I then just basically start moving the sliders around, and so I'm not going to tell you how to move these. Every image is different, but I'll tell you what I do use and what I don't. I use whites, I use blacks. The only one here that I may touch is dehaze. I tackle vibrance in Photoshop, saturation in Photoshop, clarity, I just don't use it. So dehaze can be good. And in this image, well, it's not really doing much because it's such a dark image. It is saturating the colors a little bit. And it's never much, the dehaze, for me. So all of these I will now move around just to try and get a little bit more oomph out of the photo with the tone curve. And as I said, I'm sure you know how to use all of these, but what I'm doing at the moment, I've worked on so many images I've lost count, and I've introduced a lot of, or gotten rid of a lot of things that don't work for every image. What I'm doing now pretty much works for any image. It's always fairly similar what I'm going through at the moment. So sharpening, I don't really worry about sharpening too much, but let's just have a look at it anyway, because that's brought the noise back in. So I tend to just use the sharpening with the smart filter in Photoshop. So I don't really want to over sharpen it here, but then again, it is a raw file, I suppose. But yeah, look, there's not really that much benefit doing it in here but anyway, that's that. Noise reduction we've already done, and lens corrections, no. Transform, no. Effects, no. Calibration, no. So that's all I really do for images, and we'll just go to reset again so you can see the benefit of Lightroom. Obviously you would know this. So obviously this is blown out in the highlights there. It really needed to be a HDR, but I wasn't doing a HDR for this shot. Highlights is all the way down. Whites, yeah, I'm not getting any information back. So it can always be boosted in Photoshop, so it's better to go a little bit under with the whites, a little bit under with the blacks. It doesn't have to be perfect for me in Lightroom. It gets pushed in Photoshop. So with that done, it will be, I'll just pause the video and come back in a second. Now that I've got my image ready to bring into Photoshop, I'm going to export that out. So export with previous, I do apologize, I'm sure you know all this sort of things. Export with previous will work once I've done export. So in here, I'm going to export it to, well, it's near the desktop, but it's not. It needs to be a specific folder, and I need to go and find it, which is going to be on the desktop. I don't have, there it is, desktop, new location, image production. So this is going into the post-process folder. Don't want it in a subfolder. Don't worry about catalogs. I don't worry about catalogs. If you do, that's great. Existing files, ask what to do. Rename, I don't rename it. Don't worry about extensions. So JPEG, sRGB, quality at 100%. Don't worry about resizing. Don't worry about sharpening. Don't worry about, well, just leave the metadata there, doesn't matter. No watermark. Now, post-processing, I have this at open in Photoshop, and this actually saves about 2 or 3 steps. So I will export that now. So rather than having to update in Lightroom, find it, then open it, it's bang, it's straight in Photoshop. So now that I'm in Photoshop, this is going to be a 1360 by 720 image. So we'll get that happening. Okay, bring it up. And there we go. I will say that I don't mind if it needs it. Not that one. 1 second. Which one is it? No, not that one. Sorry, I'm back on a Mac again. I used to be on a Mac, but it's been a while. So I don't mind you not proportionally squeezing things in. Sometimes there might be some information, and nature is very forgiving. I don't know how much you've done with nature, but you can get away with so much by bringing it down. Not that this image needs it, but some images do. I could pretty much, you know, probably that much, and you wouldn't even know that it's been skewed. So anyway, just thought I'd mention that. So anyway, I'll apply that. Let's say that I'm happy with that watermark over there. So I can get rid of this one. So I've got one watermark. And see, I didn't get away with it with when things aren't in nature. These people don't look too bad. He looks squashed, and you can see that nature looks fine. You can really get away with a lot, but I'm going to get rid of him anyway. So how do I do that, at least anyway? I'll edit the contents of the smart layer, and I use the patch tool. So I'll just go around him like that, and I'll get, I don't know, make it look like that. It's not too bad. And is anyone going to know? Not really. So maybe just finish it off with a bit of that there. Yeah, that'll do. So anyway, got rid of him. I'll just pause the video and come back. Well, actually, this video is about to end on 15 minutes, so I'll stop this video here and do another video to finish in a second.